And welcome back to Troy's Spotlight, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Troy David Phillips, manager at Flashback Comics and Games in Woodbridge, Virginia, and I'm bringing you another Troy's Spotlight. Today, I'm going to talk about a very important concept in comics. That concept is the verses. If you're a comic fan and have been for some time, you have undoubtedly had conversations like, who would win in a fight? Batman versus Captain America. Who really wins the race? Superman versus the Flash, and so on. The versus concept in comics is very, very old. It goes all the way back into the golden age of comics. The first time that the Human Torch fought the Submariner in the pages of Marvel Mystery Comics, two-issue crossover illustrated by both William Everett and Carl Burgos, the artist on the Human Torch. It was phenomenal. And from there, it goes not only into the comic stories themselves, but cross companies, and sometimes those cross company ventures are actually rather heated. One of the most famous, of course, is DC Comics, National Periodicals at the time, versus Fawcett over the Captain Marvel, Shazam, versus Superman. National Periodicals claiming that Captain Marvel infringed on their trademark of Superman. This was ultimately resolved by Captain Marvel being acquired by DC Comics, and we know the Shazam series, and we have seen Superman versus Shazam more than once in the pages of comics. One of the absolute best versions of this is in the pages of Kingdom Come, written by Mark Waid and illustrated beautifully by Alex Ross. Also, companies have done verses in their own pages, and this has not been such a contentious thing, but it was actually planned. One of the most famous is Spider-Man versus Superman, or actually that's Superman versus Spider-Man. In the Bronze Age of comics in the 1970s, in a big treasury-sized edition, we got to see the headline character from Marvel Comics and the headline character from DC Comics do battle and ultimately team up to overcome their villains, and it was so good that Marvel and DC did it again with a second Superman versus Spider-Man, but also with a Batman versus the Incredible Hulk. These types of things were loved by the fans. We also saw Superman versus Muhammad Ali, another wonderful oversized treasury edition from the 1970s, artwork by Neil Adams. Beautiful stuff. Marvel and DC would collaborate in other verses. Over time, we would see Superman and the Fantastic Four, Darkseid and Galactus, Green Lantern and Silver Surfer, and certainly in the 1990s, we were given Marvel versus DC. Now, if you were a comic fan at that time, you know that you were given the opportunity via a ballot that was in Wizard magazine to vote for who you thought would win in a variety of battles, such as Aquaman versus Namor or Flash versus Quicksilver. And the fans sent their votes in, and the votes were tallied, and they were made part of the story. There were battles in that series that were pre-scripted, writer fiat at that time, so that they would end the way the writers needed them to end to advance the story. And mid-series, this culminated into the Amalgam universe, where the two companies' characters were merged together in such things as Doctor Strange Fate and Super Soldier and JLX, X-Patrol, Magneto and the Metal Men, and so on. One of my favorite verses, and it is another intercompany crossover, Marvel and DC collaborating on the much anticipated at that time JLA versus Avengers, or Avengers versus JLA, depending on the issue you were looking at. This was written by Kurt Busiek and illustrated by George Perez. It was phenomenal. It featured a large number of DC characters from the Justice League and other DC characters as well, and a huge cast coming from the Avengers, and non-Avengers characters also made significant appearances. This 4-issue series was absolutely fantastic. If you're a fan of George Perez, you know how much he looks forward to the challenge of drawing large character ensembles, and there we go. I won't spoil it, I won't ruin it for you, but the verses in comics is a wonderful thing. It gives an opportunity to see characters as envisioned from two different companies brought together on a somewhat level playing field and given the chance to give the fans what they look for, the opportunity to see who would win in a fight between Superman and Thor, between Superman and the Hulk. Feel free to send an email, come into the comic shop, and I would be happy to talk to you about what your choices for verses are. Write letters to your publishers and let them know what your ideas. And keep reading comics and keep enjoying. The summer wars are heating up. Flashback Comics and Games, check out the Troy David spotlights that appear here. Also, check out the new comic release Wednesday, our top 5 picks. Me and my co-host Kevin Goswan from comicsonline.com give you our top 5 picks for each week. And also check out the Flashback Comics and Games website. Be sure to like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on Twitter.